Morning light streamed through the windows of a two-story house facing a tree-lined street in a quiet residential area near Scottsdale, on the outskirts of Phoenix. It was a pleasant spring morning, before Arizona's harsh heat had set in. "Mom, I'm going to borrow some new dinosaur books from the library today." Rachel Wilson, busy preparing lunch in the kitchen, turned around with a smile at her son Tommy's voice. Those bright blue eyes behind his glasses, and that innocent smile, he looked just like his father Michael. Even now, 7 years after the accident, it still tugged at her heart a little every morning. Still, her beloved son's smile had kept her going all these years. "Don't make any stops on your way back from the library." "I promise." "But can I borrow 2 dinosaur books?" "Of course, but only after you finish your homework." Tommy nodded with a serious expression. His careful and gentle nature would surely make his father proud in heaven. On the kitchen counter stood Tommy's precious dinosaur figures. The Tyrannosaurus Rex, his father's last Christmas present, held a special place among them. On the living room wall hung a photograph of her mother Martha in her nursing uniform, looking dignified in her white coat. Next to it was her sister Catherine's accountant certification, once the family's pride, but now Catherine had returned home 7 months pregnant after her divorce, carrying another new lover's child. "Rachel, you're always working." "We could help more with Tommy as a family," Martha said at breakfast, her mouth turned down in disapproval. Despite Rachel paying 80% of the $2,000 monthly mortgage and raising her son alone, Rachel silently sipped her tea. Since her sister's return, her mother's attitude had grown more critical. Tension always lingered at the weekend brunch table. Their mother talked about Catherine's divorce as if it were someone else's problem. "That man was no good," she'd say. But Rachel knew the real reason was Catherine's spending habits. "You know, this room gets such nice light. It would make a perfect nursery," Catherine said one day, peering into Tommy's room. In her flashy makeup and designer maternity dress, she hardly looked pregnant. She surveyed Tommy's room with the air of someone inspecting a showroom, an expensive bag hanging from her shoulder. "Why don't we have a garage sale? This house has too much stuff," their mother suggested. Catherine's eyes lit up. "What a wonderful idea, Mom. I don't need any old things." Rachel felt uneasy, but with a major real estate contract pending, she couldn't afford to dwell on it. The luxury housing development in North Phoenix could be a career-defining deal. The contract was a success. With her long-awaited bonus in hand, Rachel planned a 3-day trip to Disneyland with Tommy. She wanted to create special memories with her son. She had been desperately trying to fill the void left by his father's absence. "Make some good memories." "Yes, have a nice time." Catherine and Martha's voices rang out with unusual sweetness, almost as if they were eager for them to leave the house. The night before departure, Tommy's room seemed tidier than usual, but Rachel dismissed it as her imagination. Bathed in California sunshine and pleasantly tired, Rachel and Tommy's taxi drove through the streets of Phoenix in the twilight. The dry Arizona wind rattled against the car windows, stirring up dust. The sun was still high, with the season's characteristic strong Phoenix rays continuing to shine. "I can't wait to see my dinosaur figures from Dad. I'm going to put the Stegosaurus I bought next to the T-Rex." Tommy chatted excitedly from the back seat, carefully holding the Stegosaurus figure he'd bought at Disneyland. Rachel smiled gently at the sight. These past 3 days had been filled with the joy of her son's smiles. Yes, but only after we unpack our bags. I know. I'll clean my room before I display it. As the taxi entered their residential area, the familiar tree-lined street came into view. But something was different. An unfamiliar station wagon was parked in front of their house. And on the porch sat what appeared to be a brand new luxury stroller. Is that one of Aunt Catherine's friends visiting? Rachel couldn't answer Tommy's innocent question. An inexplicable anxiety spread through her chest. When they opened the front door, the house was eerily quiet. The usual sounds were missing: no TV noise, no Catherine's chatter, no sounds of her mother moving about. It was an unnatural silence, as if someone had deliberately muted all sound. "Mom, something smells weird." Tommy wrinkled his nose. Indeed, it was different from their familiar house smell. The scent of fresh paint mixed with the distinctive smell of baby products wafted through the air. Rachel's anxiety grew as they climbed the stairs. The setting sun streaming into the second-floor hallway seemed to glow red like a warning. "Mom, I want to go to my room quickly. I want to see my T-Rex," Tommy urged, pulling at his mother's hand. She could feel his small hand trembling slightly. The moment Rachel's hand touched the doorknob to her son's room, she instinctively knew something irreversible had happened. When the door opened, they were confronted with an unfamiliar room. What was once Tommy's room had been completely transformed into a perfect nursery. The walls were painted a soft pale pink, with a state-of-the-art crib by the window. The changing table was neatly arranged with luxury baby items, and the shelves were decorated with cute stuffed animals, still bearing their price tags. Tommy's belongings had vanished without a trace. "Where's Dad's dinosaur?" Tommy's voice trembled. At that moment, a voice came from behind them. "Oh, you're back early." Turning around, they saw Catherine standing there with a broad smile. She was dressed in expensive maternity wear, looking like she'd stepped out of a magazine. Behind her stood Martha, appearing somewhat uneasy. "Where are my son's things?" Rachel's voice was surprisingly calm, even to herself. "I took over the room. Sold everything, got a good price too," Catherine declared proudly, her tone suggesting she was reporting some great achievement. "Your sister is pregnant." "It's only natural, isn't it?" Martha added with a small laugh, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "What about the dinosaur Dad gave me?" "It was his last present." Tommy's voice shook. Large tears rolled down his cheeks. "Oh, that old toy. I sold it all to the second-hand shop. It wouldn't suit this lovely nursery anyway," Catherine said with a dismissive laugh. Tommy's body began to tremble, clinging to Rachel's clothes. The tremors from his small frame felt like an earthquake. "Come on, Tommy. I'll give you a new teddy bear. Isn't this one much cuter?" As Catherine reached for a new teddy bear from the shelf, Rachel's voice cut through the air like ice. "Don't touch him." With trembling hands, she took out her smartphone. "I'm calling the police. This is theft." "Oh, don't be so dramatic," Catherine laughed. "Calling the police on family? How could you do this to family?" Martha said in confusion, her voice tinged with reproach. "This ends here," Rachel declared quietly but firmly. Holding her sobbing Tommy close, Rachel slowly left the room. Behind them, she could hear Catherine and Martha's laughter, an eerie sound, as if they were enjoying someone else's misfortune. In the car, Tommy asked in a trembling voice, "Mom, what are we going to do?" "Dad's dinosaur. I promise we'll get it back," Rachel vowed, holding her son tightly. Her voice carried a determination stronger than ever before. This was no longer just a family dispute. It was the beginning of righteous retribution against an unforgivable betrayal. The fluorescent lights of the Phoenix police station illuminated Rachel's tired face. The station was quiet in the late hours, with only the occasional phone ring and keyboard clicks breaking the silence. Detective Sarah Morrison, sitting across the desk, studied Rachel with perceptive eyes. Everything in Tommy's room was disposed of. His clothes, books, toys, and the dinosaur figure that was his father's last gift. Rachel's voice trembled slightly. "We've reviewed the security camera footage," Detective Morrison said, turning her computer screen. 3 days ago, in the afternoon, a second-hand dealer's truck was parked in front of your house. The footage shows your sister and mother carrying out multiple boxes and bags. The video also captured Catherine speaking smugly with the dealer, while Martha helped carry boxes. Neither of their expressions showed any sign of guilt. "We've also checked social media," a young officer brought new evidence. The smartphone screen displayed Catherine's Instagram account. In her posts, Tommy's belongings were labeled as unwanted items. The dinosaur figure, his father's last gift, was among them. "We've estimated the total value of the stolen items," Detective Morrison showed some documents. "Currently, it amounts to approximately $20,000. The dinosaur figure collection, in particular, included some premium pieces." Rachel nodded silently. It wasn't about the money. Her son's memories and the bond with his late father had been ruthlessly stolen. Leaving the police station, Rachel headed to a prominent law firm in Maricopa County. On the top floor of a downtown high-rise, she walked down the marble hallway with determined steps. "There's clear premeditation," Attorney James Foster said, reviewing the evidence documents. Looking at the social media post history, they had been planning this for at least a month. "It was a deliberate crime targeting your vacation period." Foster spread documents across his desk. "Furthermore, we have gathered testimonies from neighbors. There are witnesses who heard Catherine openly declaring that she had priority because she was pregnant." The next move was economic sanctions. At the bank, Rachel initiated the process to stop payments on the family home's mortgage. All documentation of her covering 80% of the monthly $2,000 payment was on record. "This is a draft of the certified letter," Attorney Foster presented new documents. "It details all the evidence of how you've essentially supported the household finances for 7 years. That evening, 3 police cars pulled up in front of the family home. Neighbors watched the scene unfold from behind curtains. "How could you do this?" Martha wailed. "Calling the police. Aren't we family?" Rachel didn't respond to those cries. "Rachel, do you realize what you're doing? Having your pregnant sister arrested." But there was no turning back. This wasn't mere revenge. It was the pursuit of justice and the protection of her son's rights. That night, in a hotel room, Rachel gently stroked the cheek of her sleeping Tommy. Tomorrow would begin a new battle, the legal proceedings in court. But it was a necessary process. "I'll get back Dad's keepsake, I promise," Rachel whispered softly. Her voice carried an unwavering determination. The heavy doors of the Maricopa County Courthouse gleamed in the morning light. Phoenix's early summer sun was already strong, with cicadas chirping in front of the stone courthouse. Rachel sighed deeply as she reviewed the materials received from Attorney Foster. They were having a final meeting in a cafe near the courthouse. In the air-conditioned interior, her iced coffee cooled her perspiring forehead. "We have sufficient evidence," Foster said, his voice full of confidence. "Social media post history, security camera footage, neighbor testimonies. And most importantly, among the mountain of documents spread on the table, there was shocking evidence." Catherine's social media direct messages revealed conversations with secondhand dealers from 3 months prior. "Can you buy everything from my nephew's room? High price. I want to dispose of it quickly because we're moving." Complete fabrication, Foster pointed out. There were never any plans to move. It's clearly premeditated theft. Moreover, Martha's bank account movements were suspicious. After Catherine's divorce, large sums were being withdrawn monthly. Meanwhile, all records of Rachel's continued mortgage payments were submitted as evidence. "Your mother was counting on your mortgage payments to support Catherine's luxurious lifestyle." Leaving the cafe, Rachel headed to her new home. The apartment they'd moved into last week still had boxes piled up everywhere. However, Tommy's new room was already neatly organized. "Mom, I'm going to school," Tommy called out cheerfully. He seemed to be gradually adjusting to his new school. "Take care," Rachel called after him, feeling that her son's back looked a little stronger than before. On her way to the courthouse, her phone rang. It was Detective Morrison. "We've found new evidence," the detective's voice was excited. "Some of Tommy's belongings have been discovered in the second-hand dealer's warehouse, including the dinosaur figures." Rachel's heart raced. There was still hope to recover his father's last gift. Arriving at the courthouse, reporters had already gathered. The case had drawn local media attention as a controversial story about woman sues pregnant sister. The courtroom was filled with a solemn atmosphere. Heavy wooden furnishings, the American flag, and the judge's bench all emanated dignity. Catherine entered wearing expensive maternity wear, with a tired-looking Martha beside her. Neither of them spared Rachel a glance. Evidence photos were displayed on the screen one after another. Security camera footage, social media posts, bank transaction records, and the decisive message exchanges. The defendant had planned this before returning to the family home, the prosecutor addressed the jury. She didn't hesitate to sell even the last gift from her niece's father. Catherine's lawyer tried to emphasize pregnancy-related stress as a factor. However, this argument fell flat in the face of evidence showing premeditation. "We call Tommy Wilson to the stand," Foster announced. Seated in the small witness box, Tommy bravely began speaking in his own words. "The dinosaur that Dad gave me before he went to heaven, it was my treasure." The courtroom fell silent. "Grandma and Aunt Catherine took everything from my room. Even my memories with Dad." During Tommy's testimony, Catherine maintained a defiant smile. Her attitude caused the jurors' expressions to change. Rachel and Catherine crossed paths in the hallway. Why? Rachel asked quietly. Why? You wouldn't understand, Catherine sneered. Always the perfect sister, playing the ideal mother. Your jealousy hurt my son's heart. Jealousy? Don't make me laugh. I have a new life. Once this baby is born, everything will be mine, Catherine said, stroking her heavily pregnant belly. In the afternoon session, Martha took the witness stand. I just wanted to help Catherine. Watching her mother testify through tears, Rachel felt complex emotions. But you knew you were selling your grandson's belongings? The prosecutor's questioning left Martha speechless. Finally, Detective Morrison presented the decisive evidence. The defendant sold the stolen items to multiple second-hand dealers. The total amount comes to $23,475. As the evidence examination concluded, deliberations began. Rachel closed her eyes in prayer. Beside her sat Tommy, looking exhausted. The deliberation took 2 hours. The jury has reached a verdict. As everyone held their breath, the jury foreman stood up. We order the defendant, Catherine Wilson, to pay damages of $30,000. Furthermore, she is prohibited from approaching the victim and her son. Rachel quietly stood up. Looking at Catherine and Martha, she slowly said, "This is the end for us." As they were leaving the courtroom, Detective Morrison caught up with them. "Mrs. Wilson, I have one more report. We can return the dinosaur figures recovered from the second-hand dealer tomorrow." Tommy's eyes lit up. Rachel hugged her son while looking out the window. The Phoenix sky was unusually clear and blue. Morning sunlight streamed through the windows of their new home. Though the view was different from Scottsdale, Rachel and Tommy had grown completely accustomed to this place over the past 6 months. "Mom, look. The dinosaur room is finished." An energetic voice rang out from upstairs. In Tommy's new room, the recovered dinosaur figures were arranged on a special shelf. The T-Rex, his father's last gift, held a place of honor. New dinosaur books were stacked on the small desk by the window, and dinosaur drawings that Tommy had made were posted on the walls. "It's a lovely room," Rachel said, gently stroking her son's head. "I'm sure Dad would be happy too." Through sessions with a child psychologist, Tommy gradually began to heal his emotional wounds. At first, he would often wake up from nightmares in the middle of the night. But now, he had made new friends and regained his former smile. "Hey, Mom, I got 100% on my math test today." Tommy showed her his test paper. "The teacher said I did really well." Meanwhile, their former home stood empty. With the mortgage payments in default, it was ultimately foreclosed. Martha and Catherine were forced to move to a trailer park on the outskirts of Phoenix. One holiday, Rachel went out to lunch with her work colleagues. The conversation naturally turned to that incident. "Have you heard about Catherine?" Jennifer lowered her voice to say. "After giving birth, she developed postpartum depression and can't take care of the baby." "I heard Martha is taking care of it," another colleague added. "But it seems the newborn care is too much for someone her age." Rachel silently listened while staring into her coffee cup. According to rumors on social media, Catherine was still splurging on luxury brands. However, life in the trailer house must have been far from the new life she had imagined. I heard they can't get any support, Jennifer continued. Nobody in the community wants to get involved. Even the church groups are keeping their distance. Karma, her colleagues' voices carried a hint of satisfaction. That evening, Rachel was enjoying the cool evening air on the small patio in their garden. The Arizona night breeze gently caressed her cheeks. "Mom," Tommy sat down beside her. "How are Grandma and Aunt Catherine doing?" Rachel hesitated for a moment. But looking into her son's clear eyes, she decided to answer honestly. "They're going through a difficult time. But that's the result of their choices. They're not happy like us?" "Well..." Rachel drew her son close. "But we have what's truly important, don't we?" "Yes," Tommy answered with a smile. "Dad's dinosaurs, and Mom, and..." He looked up at their new house. "This home and kind friends too." Stars twinkled in the night sky. The bustle of Phoenix echoed in the distance. A year later, life continued in the trailer park for Catherine and Martha. Catherine's designer clothes gradually became worn, and her social media followers dwindled day by day. Her child, left at daycare, never truly knew a mother's love. Meanwhile, Rachel's new home had become a place for regular weekend barbecues. Neighborhood families would gather, children playing in the yard while adults chatted about work and life. "Hey, Mom," Tommy asked one night before bed. "We're happy, aren't we?" "Yes, we are," Rachel answered, embracing her son. "We have what truly matters." The dinosaurs lined up on the room's shelves stood silently in the moonlight. They were more than just figures, they were memories of his father, symbols of the bond between mother and son, and monuments to the triumph of justice. The night sky visible from their new home's window was always blue and clear. There lay genuine happiness that could never be broken.